It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
Welcome to this week's edition of Fill Your Plate Now. I'm Tammy Baker, and I am going solo today. My co-host is not with us today, but so excited. We've got a really amazing guest today that I think everyone's going to enjoy. Actually, this particular guest works with a brewery, and you might wonder, as a registered dietitian, why we're interviewing someone from a brewery. And that's because we just fell in love with this brewery because they are so connected to agriculture and sustainability and direct sourcing. And so they agreed to come on today and tell us a little bit more about. Uh, our guest is going to tell us a little bit more about himself as well as the brewery, and I think you'll find it really fascinating. Today, our guest is Brad Miles. Brad has worked with brewery industries for a number of years now
Yep.
in research and development and innovation primarily, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and prior to being at Arizona Wilderness Brewing Company, where you're at now, you worked at a brewery in California. And I do have to say, when I was looking at your bio, I found it very interesting. You had really innovative names for beers, things like
Yeah.
Hopnosis.
Oh,
And
yeah.
my favorite, it was called Dad Bod Quad.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
I would love to taste that one.
Yeah.
That sounds
A
amazing.
couple bottles laying around, yeah.
But I don't think you probably get out of school and say, okay, I'm going to work in research and development for a brewery. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you first got interested in this area, or if you always had been, and kind of the pathway.
Yeah, so I started, grew up in Southern California. I spent quite a bit of time with my grandma, who, a little tiny, fierce Greek lady. She's like 4 foot nothing. She was born and raised in Greece, and she just like, I'd go to her house and be like, yeah, there's nothing to eat. I'm hungry. She's like, well, what do you want? Um, like, oh, I want a bagel. And she's like, okay, give me a few hours. And she would whip it up, make a bagel. She always had like cheese, like a cheesecloth bag, like dripping, fermenting her own cheese. She made her own wine. She had from her vineyard in her like little backyard. So that just kind of like spurred this, desire to like, oh, if I want something, I can make it.
Uh-huh.
Um, Went through high school. I was always kind of like cooking. Um, then went to college, went to UNLV in Las Vegas, had to get that business degree. That's kind of like what was beaten to my head. But the whole time I was like brewing in my dorm room, graduated college, got into the casino business, and I was just kind of home brewing like crazy. And then I was at a casino in Southern California, Indian casino. And then I was working 410s, home brewing, and I'm like, I need to like try this and see if I like it. So I got a part-time job, a couple days a week at this small brewery in defunct now in Temecula called Refuge Brewing. And yeah, first day on the job, came home, told my wife, I'm like, I have to do this. Like, I was washing kegs the whole day, which isn't like a glamorous part of the job, but just being in the environment, smelling the beer being brewed, seeing the tanks, this was for me.
Mhm.
So I worked there for about a year, just doing 2 jobs, and I got paid minimum wage there. But that was like, I looked at that as like my education, because I couldn't just, we had a mortgage. I couldn't just up and go to brewing school,
Mhm.
especially after I'd just finished college. And then, yeah, about a year in, I'm like, we need to do this. So I just started applying everywhere, and I landed at Firestone Walker in Paso Robles. It's kind of funny. They're one of the biggest breweries, but they're in wine country. And I didn't start in R&D. I started just in the cellar, worked my way up to the brew house. Then I was filtering. Then I was a shift lead. And then started a R&D and recipe innovation and all that kind of stuff.
Were you always drawn to innovation and
Yeah, I think working at a big brewery like that, you're brewing like 6, 7 beers all the time, and that's it.
huh?
They do 805, world renowned brewery. They do everything really, really well. So I was always kind of like bugging my boss and the brewmaster and like, hey, like, what if we did this? And what if we did this? So when that opportunity came up, um, someone was already in the position, then they left, and they're like, we don't need to look anywhere else. He's already super interested in this stuff, so
Well, that's
yeah,
fantastic. So a lot of on the job learning too.
yeah, oh for sure, yeah.
Oh, wow. And then to to move from California and Paso
Mhm.
Robles to Arizona, that's a pretty big move. What influenced you in doing that?
Yeah, it was a big move. So I had spent, so I was at my first brewery for about a year, and I was at Firestone Walker for almost 9 years.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted to move to a brewery where I could, number one, have a little bit more creative control to where our product would be sold over the counter. And then the draw, I had known John and Pat, the owners of Wilderness, just through like beer festivals and just being in the industry together. I didn't know them well, but I knew of them, and I was really drawn to like using local malt and sourcing all of your ingredients, like knowing your farmer, which is stuff Firestone did, but just on a different scale. Um, and then we kind of came out here, applied. Uh, Pat's like, "Hey, come out, see the brewery, break bread with us, see what this place is all about." Um, Kind of fell in love with Gilbert, and we're like, me and my wife were like, "Oh, I want to work here, and we want to raise our kids here." Like it's kind of like
Oh,
a big draw of it, yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. I miss that part of California. It's beautiful there. But Paso and Tascadero is actually where we lived. That whole San Luis Obispo County is pretty rural,
Mhm.
and that can get a little bit, it can get old, like having to drive 3 hours to go to IKEA. So
Especially with traffic in California.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
And so with Arizona Wilderness Brewing Company, for our listeners that have not heard of it before,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about it and its mission.
Yeah, so it's kind of been an ever evolving thing, but our core values are the environment, people, local, and they kind of embody that in everything they do. And um, sorry, I lost myself. What was the question again?
So, what? Tell us a little bit about Arizona Wilderness
Uh,
Brewing Company, about its mission, what makes it unique.
okay, yeah. So our mission, what makes us unique, what makes Arizona Wilderness unique, um, in the grand, because there's tons of microbreweries around. And I'm not saying this to throw shade at other ones because they are local companies, but everyone like says they're local. And like, yeah, the beer's produced locally, but where's your malt come from? Um, if you have food, where's your food come from? Because it's easy to open up a brew pub like we are and just get your malt from big maltster that is grown and malted in Canada. Get your burger meat from a just mass marketed thing that's coming from like the lowest common denominator. And at Wilderness, we do like the opposite. On the brewing side, all of our malt comes from Arizona. um, Sinagua malt grown and malted up in the Verde Valley. We just went through a beef producer change, and it's a positive change. But all of our beef for our burgers comes from Arizona,
Hmm.
um, and just everywhere across the board down the line. I just spent 8 hours processing watermelons yesterday for our watermelon beers. Easiest thing to do for a beer would be to go um, to a puree manufacturer and buy prepackaged puree and just pour it in the tank. We got 7,000 pounds of watermelons delivered for 2 beers that we're doing.
Local watermelons?
It's from Tucson, yeah, from Crooked
Wow.
Sky Farms, yeah.
Oh, I should have had you bring
I should have
samples.
brought some
Oh.
in, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Tell me a little more. I know that United Dairymen of Arizona provides
Mhm.
you with lactose
Lactose,
for
yep,
some of your products.
yeah.
Where else do you source from?
On the kitchen side, Duncan Family Farms is a big one. We use Pivot Produce a lot, and they kind of direct us to farms when we're looking for something specific. Um, I do a lot of local sourcing, but our head chef, Chef David, actually is does a lot more because we try to get everything local as much as we can. So, Steadfast Farms. I'm gonna leave somebody out, but Arizona grass raised beef was one for a while. But yeah, I was just sitting. We were having a meeting at our new location, Miracle Mile, and there's a mural that has all like hand painted all of the locations that we
And
work
how
with.
many locations do you have now?
We have 3.5. So
That's a half.
what's a half? Yeah, yeah. So we have our Gilbert Brew Pub, the original brew pub. And in 2019, they opened our downtown spot. It's on Roosevelt Row. And then last year we opened up Arizona Wilderness Miracle Mile, which is on McDowell. So it's only a couple miles from our downtown spot. And then our half is our Wood Note cellar, um, which is like our mixed culture barrel facility. And the reason I call it a half is it's not open all the time. We open it once a month for Cellar Saturdays. We have like our bottle club events there,
Uh-huh.
private parties. We've done comedy shows there, so that's our half location.
Oh, okay. We'll have to put more information about that
Yeah,
in the descriptor
yeah,
for this podcast.
yeah.
That sounds really fun. Now, and this was actually the first microbrewery, wasn't it, in Gilbert?
I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
How did the owners decide to put the first microbrewery there?
I don't know the specifics of it. John was brewing home brewing in his garage in Queen Creek, and then Pat, the other owner, he was brewing at Santan, and they had just known each other from craft brewing is like a pretty small community. And I think it might have been the only place they can get at the time that kinda opened up. It was, the brew pub got put into a Chinese restaurant that went out of business, so it was kind of already set up for that type of, service a little bit. They had to fit a little tiny brewery in there, but yeah,
Very
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, and I think I told you right before we started that with the lactose coming from dairy in Arizona, we had a National Farmers Day celebration a couple years ago there where we brought a cow out and
yeah.
the individuals pouring behind the counter came out and milked a cow, and we had
Yeah,
people that went behind the counter and attempted to pour some beer
yeah,
we had a great time and television stations got a real big kick out of watching some of your employees
I'm
milk
sure that
cows.
sounds fun.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun
yeah.
and it seems like the owners and the establishment really embrace agriculture. How did that start?
So we're called Arizona Wilderness. So I think that was them from day one. They wanted to represent Arizona, not just, with the name, but like really a taste of Arizona, right? Like, um, we are our product is a product of the state and kind of tastes that way, if that makes sense. It's kind of an abstract way of thinking about it.
It sounds like you've really kind of had almost every job within a brewery, from washing barrels when you first
Yeah.
started, research and development.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through how you develop a brew and who's involved with it from start to finish?
It can start in many different ways. This is on our mixed culture side, but we have a beaten apple salad, which is like a different type of salad you don't always see in restaurants. And these beets are like really sweet and nice. It's like, well, let's make a beer out of this. So there's like that way where you're tasting something and you want to do it. Then there's just kind of, um, you have an idea for a specific type of beer. It kind of depends on what the goal is for it. We're pretty malleable in that way. We're doing a collaboration with a band coming up from Hawaii, so that was kind of a little bit fun to, um,
Oh, really?
yeah,
You do a pineapple beer then?
that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, yeah, pineapple and coconut wheat beer.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
so it just kind of depends on where the impetus comes from. We are a brew pub still. We have 3 locations. We're in distribution, but we still have the brew pub soul to where we have new releases every week.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like I want to drink an English mild, so we'll do that. Sometimes I'll do mock-ups of things, so I'll take a beer we already make and steep it in whatever the ingredient is, or like add this juice to it to kind of get an idea of what it's gonna be. But
Mhm. So do you have like brainstorming sessions where you get a group together and talk about what do we do this month?
yeah, no, for sure, yeah, yeah. A lot of them, like we have John and Pat, kind of they did some crazy beers back in the day. We have some. We just released a beer on Saturday on 7-Eleven day. So the beer's called 7-Eleven, and it's a Slurpee inspired beer.
Oh,
And
really?
that's kind of a funny story of how that one came up. It was a collaboration with this brewery out of Florida,
Mhm.
um, and the guy was like, it was really hot, and they were here, and they just went to 7-Eleven and got a Slurpee, and all had one. They're like, we should make a beer for this next year. And the guy's like, well, what's the fruit gonna taste like? And he's like, well, across the street from where I live in Florida, there's a dragon fruit farm. So he like packed all this dragon fruit into his Honda Accord, drove it out here. They processed it, they used it. And this was, probably 9, almost 10 years ago now, and that's just been a yearly beer we do now.
Uh-huh.
Um, so we're kind of been known for these big, crazy um, pastry, food-inspired beers. We do every year pecan pie brown ale. Um,
What is that one composed of?
it's a big imperial brown ale that is made to taste like pecan pie. So I think it actually came about. They were driving to Tucson, and I think they're still there, a whole bunch of pecan farms there.
Huh.
And then like, let's make a beer out of that type of thing. And then that's a yearly staple that we ran out before Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and I was getting emails from people upset that they couldn't drink it at Thanksgiving this year.
Of course you ran out. Everybody wants pecan at
Yeah,
Thanksgiving. That is so interesting. How do you know how to put those flavors together?
it's tough. It's sometimes there's some misses sometimes, but you got to be willing to take a chance, and that's something that at a big brewery you couldn't do, right? Like the R&D and recipe building process is completely different at a large scale brewery versus a brew pub.
Mhm.
Because like we don't do this that often and don't ever try to do it. But if we have a 15 barrel system, so it's a 30 keg system, 30 kegs in one batch. If it doesn't come out, it's not gonna like break the bank. We've only since I've been there had to dump a handful of batches, so it doesn't happen too much. But sometimes there's ones where we kinda missed the mark, but it's not horrible. It's still good tasting, but it didn't have the flavor that we wanted.
And do you get many suggestions from some of your patrons?
Oh, yeah, yeah, a lot of our regulars we have a really dedicated, group of regulars that come to the Gilbert location specifically,
Mhm.
and they're kind of, a lot of them are tied to some of those beers in the past. First time they went to a brewery, they had this pecan pie beer, and they just, like, fell in love with it. We do a peanut brittle one too, is one of our more requested ones. Um, so they kinda latch on to the old stuff. "When's this coming back? When are you gonna do this?" But yeah, a lot of it comes internally too. We'll have, employees say, "Oh, have you ever thought about doing this? Let's do this." So
So when you get kind of to those final stages, how do you know when it's ready to roll out to your customers?
we don't. Um, it's kind of when the batch is ready. We don't do too many test batches.
Huh?
We have the ability to brew a half batch, and again, like I said, like do some stuff with one-off kegs.
Huh?
Um, but I'm confident enough if we have an idea and I have time to think about it and plan it,
Mhm.
and we can do it on the first time.
What are some of the favorites then now? I know you've mentioned a couple of specialties, but are there some overall favorites that are always
Yeah, we have some core beers, that are always on. Our Refuge, which was the first beer they ever brewed, which is an IPA. Um, I don't know if I could swear on this podcast, but Don't Fuck It Up's our blonde ale.
it's
Um, and
it's a
that
name, so it's okay.
Yeah, and that's our number one seller. That's our bread and butter. It's a nice light blonde ale. And the name kind of intrigues people, but it's a double entendre, right? So the names Don't Fuck It Up, and we have like asterisks and the number symbol, um, in the F word, but what it like the message of the beer is when you're out in the wilderness camping, don't mess it up for everybody else. Like we want the next generation and 3 generations to be able to enjoy the rim too, right? The Moyan rim. So that's kind of like the messaging behind it.
Uh-huh.
But some people who don't know that
Uh-huh.
are like, one of the owners, Pat, always say this. He's like, people come in and they don't care about any of that stuff, but they're like, give me the fuck you up beer. And they don't know they're buying a beer for a brewery that's sustainability based. And so it kind of works on a bunch of different levels. And then we have one of our probably newer um, mainstay beers is our West Clear IPA, which was my first recipe here. And
Oh,
I kind of just like whipped it together. It's a pretty it's not a crazy beer, it's just a normal IPA.
mhm.
I just kinda put it together real quick to fill a spot, and it hasn't come off the tap list in 3 years, so
Wow.
it'll go off here and there, but never for more than, like, 2 weeks at a time. So
For something to stay on the tap list, then I'm sure it has to do you have to have a certain amount of business
yeah.
for the beer to, as far as from that business side to keep it on there.
Yeah, our people will have to want it. We don't just put stuff on to put it on.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're going through all the trials and tribulations as most small companies are right now. So, yeah, we need to has to be good, has to make money, so
Yeah, that
Yeah.
and what we've seen when we're talking to people in various parts of agriculture and other and with different businesses too is technology's playing more and more of a role
Mhm.
in helping to streamline things or helping with the process. What do you see on the horizon in terms of things that might be helpful in your business?
Um, so we use a lot of technology in the business overall.
Mhm.
On the brewing side of it, there's not too much. Craft brewing and like our brew systems, we moved all the operations from Gilbert to Miracle Mile.
Mhm.
That was the impetus for opening up that location. But our brew systems, it's upgraded from the one we had, but
Mhm.
it's still artisan brewing. We don't have a computer running it for us. We're cracking the valves. We're milling in still. But we do use some um, technology for like what moves well, where we use like our point of sale software to tell us what area codes around each location are we getting the most business from. So not that I do too much with that because if someone's in Tempe or Gilbert, doesn't really change what beer I'm gonna make.
Okay.
But in terms of marketing, it can help us for sure.
Any aspirations to open up additional locations?
I think we're all pretty scarred from opening up this Miracle Mile. It was rough, and we're still trying to like we're open for business, we're brewing, but we're still moving into this space, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Especially on the brewing side, you can design a brewery from the ground up, but there's always like once you actually start brewing in it,
Mhm.
there's still things that need to be adjusted and changed. But yeah,
Yeah, so speaking of scarring,
yeah.
um, what are some of the biggest challenges that maybe you face in the industry or just in general, Arizona wilderness faces as far as
Yeah,
microbreweries?
there's a lot. The new generation, people aren't drinking beer as much. They're not drinking as much in general.
Mhm.
So we've kind of seen a decline in that. Um, and that's kind of shifted like what we make a little bit too in
Mhm.
terms of, the biggest craziest thing. This is before my time there, a few years before my time at Wilderness, but there'd be lines around the building to get the newest release and no one knew what it was except for that it was an IPA.
Mhm.
Um, that was the hazy IPA craze. Like those days are gone for everybody. There's a few breweries that still get lines. I don't think really in Arizona. But for the most part, like it's all about being a sustainable business, both with our practices, but also with our cost of goods sold and our bookkeeping type stuff too.
We really love that you support local
Yeah,
agriculture.
yeah,
I think that's fantastic.
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you too, in terms of yourself personally, what
Mhm.
what have you found the most rewarding?
It's super cool to go from concept to glass and to just see people like super excited about it. I spend probably too much time at our bar, but um, no, it's fun to see people um order something from us, like order beer or food or whatever, and be like, "How did they do this? Where is this come? Is this really Arizona grain?" Um, that's fun to see. That's super rewarding.
And it makes it a very unique product. I mean, there's not another product like that
No, exactly. Yeah,
because you're sourcing it locally and no one else does that.
yeah. I'm like an amateur beer historian, I like to say. In Arizona Wilderness, and this was a big appeal for me coming out here. They're kind of a modern throwback to how beer was traditionally made and consumed. If you looked at like all the classic styles, Kolsch came from Cologne, Germany, and the yeast that's used to make a Kolsch, it's like a hybrid type yeast.
Mhm.
And like, why is it like that? And why does it taste that way? Well, that's the conditions that the yeast adapted to over time, and they got their grain from this farmer on this side of the river. They got their hops from the one on this side, and they used the water from the river. So it created this beer style. Like you didn't go to a traditional brewery in Germany and they'd have 20 beers on tap like we have.
Mhm.
They would have Kolsch, and that's it. And then they might have like a double type beer, stronger ale. Um, but for the most part, they made with what they had, and they just repeated the process over and over. And that liquid as a function of their area was super appealing to me because a lot of brewers in the modern craft beer, they don't do that. A lot of them don't have it. Like there's not a ton of craft maltsters around.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
That's a really good point. You've kind of gone back to the roots
back
of
to the roots. Yeah,
brewing.
yeah. And I think the same could be said on the food side, um, where when you were if you're getting your bread from the local baker, the grain was coming locally. This person just made it.
Now, someone who might be thinking about a career in this area, what would you tell them is the most rewarding, and what are the watch outs that you would tell someone wanting
Yeah,
to go into this
I think
profession?
you need to like cleaning because brewing's the easiest part of the job. Y- eh, y- and you're cleaning a lot. You're cleaning tanks, you're scrubbing floors, because you got to keep the area sanitary.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say to anyone going in, you need to love the process. If you don't have fun doing yeast dumps, um, then you probably don't want to be up on the brew deck because again, the brew decks, like that's the glory side of it. Drinking the beer is the glory side of it, but you gotta like the ins and outs of it and really be like technical with what you do because small things impact the beer at the end of the road. So
That's so true with every profession, though.
mhm.
Everyone sees the end result, but they
Yeah,
don't realize all that hard work
yeah,
that goes behind the scene to make it what
exactly.
it is.
Yeah,
And with our listeners today, if you wanted them to go away from this podcast remembering one thing about brewing and about Arizona Wilderness Brewing Company,
uh-huh.
what would that be?
Just that like when you taste what we produce, food, beer, you're tasting Arizona. We put so much effort into talking to our farmers and not even negotiating with them, but like, hey, we really like this tomato didn't come out the right way. Have you tried this like actually having a relationship with them and knowing your food. And we know our ingredients before we give it to the consumer. And we've kind of built that trust with our regulars, where they trust everything that we put out. Not only is it going to be good, because number one, it has to be good, or no one's going to buy it, and we're kind of doing this all for nothing. Um, but they can trust that it's uh, processed the right way and grown the right way and all that.
And if they wanted more information on Arizona Wilderness Brewery, where would they go?
Check out the website, ArizonaWildernessBrewing.com, our Instagram, get on our mailing list. We have a really good email list that goes out, and you can sign up on our website. Um, but yeah, or come to any of our locations, Gilbert, Roosevelt Row, and Miracle Mile on McDowell.
I'm going to be there. That's
Yeah,
for sure. After all this, that
yeah,
great information. Really, really appreciate it, Brad. Thank you
it's fun.
so much for being with us
Yeah, it's fun to
today.
be here. Yeah,
And hopefully, we'll be able to have you on again sometime. You can introduce us to some holiday brews. How's that?
yeah, let's do it. A
Okay,
few of those coming up.
got it.
Awesome. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.